Justin Ford for From the Frontline. Tonight our topic is 33 years of standing for life. In the studio with me is Dr. Peter Hammond, the founder of Frontline Fellowship, who has been involved in serving persecuted Christians for over 40 years in 38 countries. Dr. Hammond, last Sunday, the 5th of October 2025, you organized and hosted the International Life Chain Sunday in Cape Town. What was involved in this event?
Well, Africa Christian Action has been organising life chains in South Africa since 1992. I became a parent in 1991. My first daughter, Andrea, was only 1 year old when she participated in our first life chain, and it's been a family event. I must say, it really struck me heavily when my wife and I were expecting our first child. My wife was pregnant, and we went to a meeting in a church in Rondebosch, Rondebosch Congregational Church, and they were running an abortion rights action group meeting dealing with the issue. And it just was so sickening to hear these people talking about the need to legalize abortion, and we're looking forward to our child. I mean, nobody's talking about a blob of tissues or potential life. We have a baby, and you're looking forward to the baby being born. It's not a potential life that'll be life when they're born. They're already alive, and seeing the ultrasound and so on. And so knowing something about how abortion had been legalized in Europe and America and how hideous that was, I was highly motivated that it shouldn't come here. And so this last Sunday, the 5th of October, marked 33 years of Africa Christian Action mobilizing Christians in Cape Town to stand for life, in obedience to the scriptural command to speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, in Proverbs 31, verse 8. And some people say, well, why do you make a public protest in a busy intersection? Well, Proverbs 1, verse 20 says, wisdom cries aloud outside. She raises her voice in the open squares. She cries out in chief concourses. At the opening of the gate to the city, she speaks her words. And we can see how many of the prophets in the Old Testament went into the marketplace. They would often do things to draw people's attention, which included prophets walking around with a yoke on their shoulders, or building something up to break it down, and tearing things in public to demonstrate what God is saying to the people. So we saw the needs for banners, posters, flags, literature. Sometimes we've marched to Parliament with coffins and with little white coffins, and even having a hearse lead us to demonstrate the fact that life begins at conception, that abortion is the violent taking of an innocent life. So we chose a very busy intersection in Cape Town where we normally hold our life chains, Buitenkruger Street in downtown Cape Town. It's a large island, almost like a park, between the entrance to the waterfront and the Cape Town International Conference. It's a very busy intersection, and there's a pedestrian walkway bridge, and there's several traffic lights. So great opportunity to reach a lot of motorists driving past and distribute literature to people at traffic lights, and also to pedestrians walking over the footbridge. And there's a huge amount of traffic going through to the waterfront in particular, or through to Sea Points and Camps Bay. On this last Sunday, there was even more traffic because there was a soccer match at the stadium, which had been built for the World Cup soccer. And so a very large amount of taxis and others going through in order to get through to the soccer match, and that gave us more people to reach as well.
What kind of responses did you receive from the public on Sunday?
Well, mostly positive, but there are always a few negatives. And interestingly, this time there were a number. We first of all were very grateful for clear skies and good weather, because on Friday we were being told you've got to cancel, rain's expected and predicted for Sunday and so on. Well, we had good weather. Praise God for that. Well, as I was setting up the first banner on the pedestrian bridge, and that was, a person is a person, no matter how small, a young woman walked up to me and declared, I'm a Christian and I find your banner offensive. Well, the only banner we had up at that stage was, a person is a person, no matter how small. What's offensive about that? And next thing, two young men strode up to me and shouted, what a pity your mother didn't abort you. And then the two began to shout, abortion saves lives, which is so incomprehensibly, illogically stupid, but not to mention very ungracious. I mean, whatever happened to pro-choice when saying, I wish your mother had aborted you? But, not very intelligent comments, but those are about the only negatives we got that day. Normally we have a bit more negative harassments, but most of the people reported thumbs up and hooting, positive comments, people shouting encouragement out the windows of their cars that went past. So mostly positive, but you've always got to expect a couple of negatives.
How did you respond to such negative feedback?
Well, we tried to have constructive conversations with the passers-by on the pedestrian bridge. So the question I'd like to ask is, when do you think life begins? And some of them say something like, well, when there's a heart wave or a brain wave. Well, in fact, we know now it's a biological fact, life begins at conception. We consider the absence of a heartbeat a sign of death. Well, what about the presence of a heartbeat being a confirmation of life? We can measure a baby's heartbeat at 3 weeks after conception. And at that stage, most people don't even know if they're pregnant yet. And a brainwave is detectable at 6 weeks after conception. So if the absence of a brainwave is a confirmation of death, then surely the presence of a brainwave is a confirmation of life. Birth isn't a magical act that turns a non-human into a person. It's just a change in environment. Birth is a change in environment for life that already began many months before. Every abortion stops a beating heart. I mean, it's just science. Every abortion ends a brainwave. Every abortion is the murder of a helpless, innocent human being. I mean, what has this baby done wrong? How can a baby deserve death? And so, as Psalm 106 says, they sacrificed their sons and their daughters to demons. They shed innocent blood, the blood of their sons and daughters, and the land was desecrated by their blood. And so we try to communicate, working our way through the milestones of life. You know that by 9 weeks, the baby's already got its fingerprints, all of its organs, developed kidneys, heart, everything else like that. When a person says, it's my body, I can do with it as I like, well, do you have 2 hearts? Do you have 2 brains? Do you have 2 livers? Do you have 2... you can mention any different parts. But you can even have a different gender baby, obviously. I mean, many women give birth to boys. So can you be male and female at the same time? Well, in the past, nobody would have questioned, but these days you might have some people a bit confused. But it's not your body. It's another body within your body. So to try and work our way through these different things of indicators of life and milestones of life, and to be able to appreciate, well, when do you think life begins, and when do you think abortion should be legal? And very few people would go as far as saying, at any time it's okay to kill a baby. Most people say, well, before there's a heartbeat, before there's a brainwave and things like this. But if you push people logically, they've got to admit life actually begins at conception, not just when the heartbeat can be measured.
Is the life chain primarily a protest event, Dr. Hammond?
Well, certainly, yes, it is a protest against the violence and the injustice of abortion. But it's far more than that. The life chain's a prayer vigil, and it's an evangelistic outreach. And the life chains are peaceful placard protests, they're evangelistic outreaches, and they're public prayer vigil. There was more traffic than normal this last Sunday, and there was a very heavy traffic police presence. But refreshingly, they didn't try to harass us and prevent us from distributing gospel literature this time. We were particularly praying that an obnoxious individual at the traffic department who's been trying to forbid us from distributing literature at traffic lights for the last 4 years would not be there, that God would prevent him being there. Well, he wasn't there, and he hasn't missed the last 4 years to interfere with our literature distribution, but by God's grace this time, we're able to distribute thousands of World Missionary Press gospel booklets to passing motorists and pedestrians at busy intersections. And these WMP gospel booklets fit neatly in your top pocket or handbag, but they've got 50 pages, all scripture, absolutely tremendous seed sowing. And then we had American missionary evangelist Small Paul and his son Tiny Tim. They're both very big people, by the way. So that's a bit of humor there. Small Paul and Tiny Tim gave captivating open-air preaching, using their chalk talks to draw people to Christ. Literally, they draw people to Christ. Very captivating visuals that they gave, and they started by focusing on the first baby ever born, Cain, and how he ended up murdering his brother, and the different sacrifices between what Cain gave and what Abel gave. Cain gave of the fruits of his labor, crops, whereas Abel gave a blood offering of one of his lambs, pointing to Jesus, the Lamb of God, who will take away the sins of the world. Very powerful gospel presentation with some brilliant artwork. We had a choir from Kwasi Sabantu Mission in Morrison sing a number of inspiring hymns, and there were many prayers offered for mothers in crisis pregnancies, for sidewalk counsellors outside abortion clinics, for crisis pregnancy centres, for the medical personnel who are involved who need to make a stand for life in an often hostile environment. We prayed for the journalists who need to give the other side of the story. Journalists were normally promoting abortion to be legalised, but they don't seem to have been willing to give the other side of the story about the broken lives and all the post-abortion stress syndrome and other negatives that come as a result of what they pushed for and campaigned for. Of course, we prayed for the politicians who legalised this abortion holocaust, and we prayed for the voters who all too often waste their precious votes on pro-abortion political parties. Do you know, despite South Africa having officially 78% Christians in this country, the vast majority of people in this country vote for pro-abortion parties. I think the votes for pro-life political parties in this country were less than 250,000. You could get more people at a Angus Buchan Mighty Men's Conference than you get votes for pro-life Christian parties in this country. So something's really wrong. There's some disconnect. We've got a lot of Christians voting for parties that support abortion and LGBTQ perversion, for that matter, and socialist theft and a whole lot of other evils, gambling, desecration of Sabbath, secular humanism, Bella Bill going on in the schools. So where are the Christians? How are the Christians voting? They're not voting in a consistent Christian pro-life fashion. So we needed to pray also for the voters to not waste their votes on these pro-abortion political parties, which are many. We also prayed for more pastors to clearly teach what does the Bible teach on when life begins, and what does the Bible teach on our duty to speak up for those who can't speak for themselves, to rescue those being led away to death. Proverbs 24 says, if you falter in times of trouble, how small is your strength? Rescue those being led away to death. Hold back those staggering towards slaughter.
So what is the situation regarding abortion in South Africa, Dr. Hammond?
Well, tragically, on the 1st of February 1997, that's 28 years ago, abortion on demand was legalized in South Africa. And this Termination of Pregnancy Act was probably the most controversial and the most unpopular piece of legislation to be enacted in South Africa. At the time, the Ministry of Health reported that they had received hundreds of thousands of submissions, which they had asked for, mind you, concerning their proposed legislation on abortion on demand. And they admitted over 98% of all the submissions they received opposed the legalization of abortion. So whatever happened to participatory democracy and concern for what do the people want? They ignored 98% of the submissions. And so I led marches to Parliament. Tens of thousands of people marched to Parliament. In 1995, we had 30,000 march to Parliament, protesting, amongst other things, abortion. And there were scores of delegations, including from ourselves and from Doctors for Life and many others, thousands of submissions to the Constitutional Assembly, who all implored the authorities, do not legalize the killing of preborn babies. And the surveys and opinion polls also confirmed the vast majority of South Africans were against abortion. That was true then, and that's still true today. And so pretty shocking that they could go ahead and still legalize abortion. And they didn't just legalize abortion. They took away any penalty for people violating the law. So they said you could have an abortion for any reason up to 6 weeks, and then with doctors' prescription after 6 weeks. And basically it was until the baby's born that you could literally do infanticide and kill a baby just before they're about to be born. But if a person didn't adhere to the requirements and the few minimal restrictions in a bill, there's no penalties. So, they said they were having to legalize abortion to stop backstreet abortions. But we're told that the number of backstreet abortions has skyrocketed since the legalization of abortion, because some people find it cheaper or easier to get a backstreet abortion. And so there's still not just babies being killed by backstreet abortions, but mothers dying because of complications, because unhygienic and unsterilized, unmedical conditions. And you just think of the lies they told us beforehand, what they were going to do. this is not legislation at all. This is just, there's no limit or restrictions on abortion whatsoever. You can have abortion for any reason right up to birth itself. And that's why we call our people to respond to 2 Chronicles 7:14. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then God says he will hear from heaven. He will forgive their sin and he will heal their land. If we want God to heal our land, we need him to forgive our sin, and abortion is a national sin. We need God to hear from heaven. And God has said, it's not that his ear is heavy that he cannot hear. It's not that his arm is short that he cannot save. It's that our iniquities have hidden his face from us so that he will not hear. You know, it doesn't matter how many times we sing in Coarsely Sick Here, Africa, or pray God bless Africa. Why should God bless a country in blatant rebellion to him who are killing babies? For goodness sakes, I mean, this is a nation that is calling for God's judgment upon it, not his blessing.
And what is the situation concerning the pro-life movement in South Africa?
Well, South Africa seems to be the first country where a vigorous pro-life movement was already established before the legalization of abortion. You know, in America, the pro-life movement really started after the legalization of abortion through Roe v. Wade, the famous court case there. Well, in South Africa, already in January 1991, Africa Christian Action and Christians for Truth launched the pro-life movement in earnest. And Africa Christian Action, we published the first pro-life leaflets, the first pro-life handbook for South Africa, Fight for Life. We demonstrated the first pro-life demonstrations and life chains already back in 1991. And so South Africa's government cannot say we didn't know, because we had delegations going to Parliament showing the stage of development, the milestones, medical professionals testifying that life begins at conception, the brainwave can be monitored at 6 weeks, the lifelong heartbeat already at 6 weeks, the brainwave at 9 weeks after conception. They saw the pictures, the ultrasound, they knew. Maybe some governments around the world could say, well, we didn't know, but they can't say that in South Africa. We had a strong pro-life movement mobilizing thousands of people onto the streets before abortion was legalized. But sadly, since abortion was legalized, it's like almost everyone's gone home, gone to bed, gone to the couch and just given up the fight. It's like this country is the only one in the world where the pro-life movement was stronger before the legalization of abortion and much weaker afterwards. In most countries, the pro-life movement didn't exist until they legalized abortion. Then they woke up and then they started to mobilize with ever-increasing strength. And you can see the March for Lives and life chains overseas getting bigger every year, whereas ours gets almost smaller every year. It's as though the church in South Africa's got this attitude of, oh, it's been legalized, there's nothing we can do about it, and then they're giving up. But it's not only about fighting to change the law, it's about trying to reach mothers in a crisis pregnancy situation and to communicate to them that adoption is a loving option and there are people who care and want to help, and to try and persuade the medical personnel not to take part. We don't have to convince all the people in Parliament to change the law before we can save some lives, and we are having a difference. We know people who've been persuaded by sidewalk counselling on the side of the road not to abort their baby, and then they've named their child after the counsellor who persuaded them. And we know of a number of cases of babies' lives being saved because of sidewalk counselling, pro-life demonstrations, people caring counselling. So the fact that so many Christians choose not to make a stand on the first Sunday in October, when the International Life Chains are mobilizing 1 million people in 1,700 locations worldwide, is a bit of a disgrace, because, you know, why is it that we've got so many thousands of churches in Cape Town, but you have trouble mobilizing a few hundred people for a life chain? And that's actually quite a scandal that our church in South Africa is so silent.
Why do you think that the church has grown so silent on the issue of abortion?
Well, good question. Why has the church grown silent? Have we accepted the status quo and given up? Have too many become too afraid to speak out? We read in John 12, verse 42, even amongst the rulers, many believed in him, but because of the Pharisees, they did not confess Jesus, lest they be put out of the synagogue. For they loved the praise of men more than the praise of God. So I've got to assume that many pastors and Christians in Cape Town are cowards. And cowardice is destructive. Compromise and cowardice hurts everybody concerned. Cowardice is short-sighted and it is destructive. In Revelation 21, verse 8, we read the list of those that God will condemn to the lake of fire for all eternity. And the first of his list, the top of the list, is cowards. Cowards will be thrown to the lake of fire. So isn't that short-sighted? They're afraid of disapproval, they're afraid of being deplatformed, being unfriended or something. And they'll end up in the lake of fire. So cowardice is a really stupid, short-sighted sin. And the Word of God commands us not to be afraid of any man. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. That's 2 Timothy 1:7. We are warned the fear of man will prove to be a snare. And the scriptures tell us of those who would not say anything about Jesus publicly for fear of the people. Even the Apostle Peter, who was normally so bold, so brave, he gave in to compromise and cowardice when he withdrew and separated himself, fearing those who were of the circumcision. And the rest of the Jews also played the hypocrite with him, so that even Barnabas was carried away with their hypocrisy. But when I saw they were not straightforward about the truth of the gospel, the Apostle Paul rebuked them openly. We read about this in Galatians 2. So we've got to ask, why are people so afraid to stand up for Jesus? They're afraid. They're afraid of disapproval. They're afraid of being embarrassed. It's fear of being ridiculed, perhaps, fear of unpopularity, fear of being misunderstood, fear of being lied about, fear of failure, fear of suffering, pain, and death, maybe, fear of loss and sacrifice. All of this can all too easily lead people to stay seated when they should stand up, to remain standing still when they should be stepping out, to remain silent when they should be speaking up. And fear leads many to remain passive and inactive or neutral when they should be fighting for what is right. And we read in Psalm 94, verse 16, this challenge: who will rise up for me against the wicked? Who will make a stand for me against the workers of iniquity? Courage isn't the absence of fear, but courage is the determination to do our duty in spite of our fear. Some rational, God-given sense of caution can protect us and our loved ones and prolong life. But if fear paralyzes us into inactivity, if fear paralyzes us into neutrality or compromise or cowardice or defeat and disobedience, then that fear is evil. And that's why God has not given us a spirit of fear. We are not called to be popular. We're called to be faithful. And the Great Commission is not about how to win friends and influence people. The Great Commission is about how to make disciples of all nations, teaching obedience to all that the Lord has commanded. Like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, the three friends of Daniel, we need to stand firm in the faith, no matter what the cost. Our God, whom we serve, is able to save us, and he will. But even if he doesn't, we will not bow before your idols, nor will we serve your gods. We're called to submit to God, to resist the devil, and he will flee from us. And we've seen at many a life chain, it can be a spiritual warfare. But we are called to overcome the world, because greater is he who is in you than him who is in the world.
Is there hope for the future, Dr. Hammond? Is it possible to reverse the abortion legislation? Once the country has legalized abortion, is there any chance of ever going back to legal protection of babies from the violence of abortion?
Well, definitely. There are several countries where abortion has become illegal again. We've just seen recently, for example, in the United States of America, when they had this Roe v. Wade decision reversed by the Chief Justices being appointed by President Donald Trump in his first term in office, he managed to reverse these decades of federal mandated abortions. And so in America, you can see it's been thrown back to local states. And some states in America have instituted, for example, in Florida, they've got a brainwave law. If a brainwave can be detected, abortion is illegal. And of course, brainwaves can be detected by 6 weeks. So any abortion over 6 weeks is illegal in Florida. Some states in America have got a heartbeat law. If you can detect a heartbeat, abortion is illegal. So this is the beginnings of the rollback against abortion. And all over America, you've got states where abortion is now a crime, a state crime. And so there's one success story. And that was a long, hard battle. Poland in Eastern Europe also, under communist rule, there was consistently over 100,000 abortions registered every year in Poland. But in 1990, when both the church and the doctors discouraged abortion, the numbers fell to 59,000. Then in 1993, Solidarity, the new government of Poland, banned abortion in everything except three hard cases. If there was danger to the life of the mother, fetal handicap, or in the case of rape. Interestingly, since 1993, last time I was in Poland, they told me there had been no abortions since they legalized only the 3 hard cases, which makes you think, well, maybe the prevalence of these hard cases have been greatly exaggerated, or maybe the mothers in Poland have decided to go ahead with the baby no matter what. But the fact is interesting, although they've made those 3 exceptions in Poland, it hasn't been used in the last 2.5 decades, 3 decades now. Another example is Zambia, where abortion was legalized, but when Zambia became officially a Christian country in 1991, they banned abortion, which we campaigned for, and some of the people in government had been in the same prison where I was locked up back in 1987. So intriguing how Zambia is a country that has reversed the abortion law and it's completely illegal. So we've got hope that we can find sanity again and get back to a legal situation where babies are protected from the violence and the injustice of abortion.
Should we limit our activities to protesting against abortion?
No, definitely not. We need love and action. We need the sidewalk counsellors outside abortion clinics, and praise God for those faithful pro-life sidewalk counsellors who've saved lives and led people to Christ by their faithful every Saturday morning counselling on the sidewalks. And we need crisis pregnancy centres and unwed mothers' homes where mothers going through a crisis pregnancy can go and find support. We need donations of baby care products, and we need, because some people say, well, I can't have baby because I can't afford the nappies, the baby formula, and so on and so forth. Well, okay, we'll go to the church and somebody will donate a cot and a pram and things like this and try to help them. So we need to promote adoption as the loving option. Do you know, it's so hard for people to adopt babies. And the reason is because so many babies that used to be adopted for families that struggle to have children of their own now just choose abortion because it's easier. And just another interesting thing that's quite scandalous. In South Africa, if you want to adopt a baby, it can cost you 80,000 Rand to go through the adoption process. But it'll cost you anything from 300 to 800 Rand to have an abortion. So what kind of evil government puts so many restrictions in the way and costs in the way of people trying adoption, who are going to have the cost of raising a child too? They're not even giving them tax breaks for raising children. So basically, they've made it much, much cheaper to kill a baby than to save its life by adopting. And so there's something radically wrong with our government system, that adoption is so much more expensive than abortion. I mean, that's pretty sick. But the Bible commands us to be compassionate towards those who are in a crisis pregnancy or in a difficult situation. But it also calls us to courageously speak out against the injustice and the national sin of abortion. We need to speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves.
Where can listeners learn more about how we can stand for life, Dr. Hammond, and campaign more effectively for the right to life of preborn babies to be entrenched in law? Are there any films to recommend, any books to read on the subject? Who can one contact to arrange speaking engagements on the subject at our local congregation, school, or youth group?
Yes, we need people to be better educated about it. And one excellent way to get a crash course on all these issues is the Biblical Worldview Summit, which comes up in January, from January the 3rd to January the 10th. In the new year in 2026. So the Biblical Worldview Summit is all about worldviews, and it tackles issues of daily life where we can apply the Lordship of Christ to all areas of life: crime, economics, to family, to school, to education, to ethics, to entertainment, all these areas. And so it'll definitely also deal with this, and we even include doing sidewalk counselling and pro-life protesting as part of a Biblical Worldview Summit. That's one of the practicals. An excellent film, well worth recommending, is Unplanned, story of Abby Johnson. The book is out too. The book and the film are excellent, top-class, well-made film. Unplanned you can show in any church, youth group, or school. Roe v. Wade is also a very intelligent look at the lies and deceit that was involved in legalizing abortion in America, and told by the person who led the campaign for the legalization of abortion in America, Bernard Nathanson. Life Mark, also a great pro-life film and a pro-adoption film made by the Kendrick brothers, and Life Mark is well worth seeing. You can show it in any church or youth group setting. I've written books as well on the subject, such as Fight for Life and Make a Difference, which are all available from Christian Liberty Books. If you come to or contact Christian Liberty Books, go onto the christianlibertybooks.co.za website. You'll find a lot of great pro-life resources, including our own in-house books like Make a Difference and Fight for Life. Africa Christian Action is a ministry of Frontline Fellowship, and if you go onto the Frontline Mission SA.org website, Frontline Mission SA.org website, you will find articles, audios, videos on Right to Life, and videos on previous pro-life marches and demonstrations. And you can also contact Concerned Young People for South Africa or Doctors for Life for speaking opportunities that you might be able to organize in KwaZulu-Natal. And in Cape Town, contact us, Africa Christian Action, at mission@frontline.org.za or phone 021 689 4480. We'll gladly provide a speaker to present the pro-life petition, or arrange for you to come and borrow a pro-life film like Unplanned or Life Mark from our library so that you can screen it at your youth group or church or school. And women's groups that all find good resources here. So, yes, visit our website, www.frontlinemissionsa.org. If you're in another part of the world and you want to know who's the local pro-life group there, we can inform you if you contact us and put you in touch. There's some brilliant pro-life groups around the world. But in Cape Town, you contact us at Livingston House. We can loan you materials, books, literature, videos you can screen, or organize guest speakers. We expect to see people at the Biblical Worldview Summit. And coming up next would be the March for Life, which is every first working day of February, closest to the legalization of abortion anniversary. So on Monday, the 2nd of February 2026, there will be a March to Life to Parliament, which we will be leading. And the Sunday, the 1st of February, will be Sanctity Life Sunday, when we encourage churches to preach on when life begins and what the Bible teaches about our responsibility to care for the preborn and those in crisis pregnancy. So again, that's something to look forward to if you're in South Africa, planning for the 1st of February, Sanctity Life Sunday, and the 2nd of February, the March for Life to Parliament.
Thank you, Dr. Hammond, for updating us on your life chain this past Sunday and on the situation concerning abortion in South Africa. In closing, I'd like to read from Proverbs 24, verses 11 to 12. Rescue those being led away to death. Hold back those staggering toward slaughter. If you say, but we knew nothing about this, does not he who weighs the heart perceive it? Does not he who guards your life know it? Will not he repay each one according to what he has done? Thank you very much for joining us From the Frontline. God bless and good night.